The sirens were like wildfire through the corridors of the Ark 890, a massive ship engineered to carry what remained of humanity across the galaxy. Panic blared in sporadic bursts, blending with the calculated chaos around me. I was just stepping out of the supply bay with a handful of nutrient packs when the overhead lights flickered ominously, mirroring the pulsating dread in my chest. The acrid scent of burnt circuitry filled the air, and I cursed under my breath. All I wanted was to grab our rations and return to the living quarters. And now we'd all probably be blown to stardust before dinner. Jameson. A voice pierced through the commotion. Rebecca stood at the end of the corridor, eyes wide and frantic. Her auburn hair, disheveled like it, had made a reckless escape from her usual braid. What's happening? I shoved the packs into my duffel, too aware of the weight of my decision. I don't know yet, but we need to head to the command center. Now. Why? She yelled back, her voice barely cutting through the chaos as alarms continued to wail. The upright tension in her shoulders spoke volumes. She knew something was wrong. It always seemed that Rebecca could read me like a book, every emotional punctuation evident in my body language. Because I gritted my teeth, forcing a calmness I did not feel. In 10 minutes we might not have a ship to call home, trust me. My words hung in the air, laced with the bitter tang of an ultimatum. I didn't want to frighten her, but the mild tremor in her hands told me that she understood the stakes were real. Fine, she finally relented, her resolve sharpening. It was always a dance between us. Sometimes she led, sometimes I did, but neither of us ever followed without hesitations. I couldn't allow those hesitations now. We sprinted down the corridor, walls adorned with holograms of Earth's past glories, now twisted slices of fractured nostalgia with the weight of fading history. Here, aboard the Ark, those memories felt like a burden rather than a beacon. I could almost hear the voices of our ancestors urging us to carry on. Yet, what did carrying on truly mean when survival felt as fragile as the ship itself? I rounded the corner and nearly collided with Adrian, the ship's head engineer, who stood transfixed before the control panels, his face lit by an angry red glow. What the hell is happening? I demanded, barely managing to hold my rising impatience at bay. Systems are failing. We've lost control of Sub-System 5, and a series of power fluctuations are cascading through the main engines, he replied, tilting his head towards me, his eyes dark from lack of sleep and worry. If we can't stabilize them soon, we might enter a gravitational slipstream like a meteor. I dropped into a black hole. I felt a sickening churn in my gut. Can you fix it? I'm trying. If we can get to the helm, I can reroute the power, he insisted, his voice steady despite the chaos all around. Then we're coming with you, Rebecca stated firmly, her determination narrowing the chaos to clarity. The weight of the moment pressed down on me, swirling with the memories of our lives out here, each precious second. Each loss, every fleeting joy compressed into this narrow escape against entropy. There were days I longed for something simple, something human and mundane, but instead, I found myself anchored within the storm of decisions and consequences that all led to this precipice. Adrian pushed forward, the three of us weaving around distraught crew members and scattered equipment. A loud crash reverberated through the Ark, sending us bracing against the wall. What was that? I whispered, dread coiling low in my stomach. There's been hull breach in Sector 12. A voice crackled through the intercom, the sound punctuated by chaos and panic. We moved faster now, urgency pushing us beyond the limits of fatigue. Just as we reached the threshold of the command center, Rebecca grabbed my arm, pulling me back slightly. Jameson, what about the comms? Shouldn't we warn other sectors? She was right, but I didn't want to split our focus. We can't. If we slow down now, we may lose our shot at stabilizing the engines, I replied, but guilt gnawed at me for leaving others behind. Can you keep an eye on the comms? Try to contact whoever is still functional. Her expression showed indecision, but I didn't have time to coax it out of her. I trusted her instinct, her capability, even if it meant putting her in danger. She nodded, albeit reluctantly, as the doors to the command center hissed open before us. The center was a whirlpool of flashing lights, distress sounds, and frantic voices. We vaulted over a clutter of malfunctioning panels, Adrian zeroing in on the main terminal. I stood at the entrance, feeling the weight of responsibility as I watched him pull up data streams while also processing repairs on the run. Suddenly, the entire ship lurched violently, throwing us off balance. I barely caught myself on a railing as alarms blared louder than ever, filling the air with an angry, metallic plea for order. "Power's critical," Adrian shouted, panic creeping into his normally composed demeanor. "I need 5 minutes to reroute, or we risk a full system failure." 5 minutes, I echoed incredulously, the tension snapping within me until I forced it down. The ship jerked again, an exclamation of its imminent demise if we did not act fast. I had lived my whole life dreaming of the stars, thinking we could conquer them by ascending above this chaotic mess of reality. But what good were dreams when faced with the grinding weight of truth? I glanced over at Rebecca, committing her encouraging glance to memory, and steeled myself with a determination that was equal parts dread and defiance. "Do what you need to do, Adrian," I yelled, my own heart pounding in synchronization with the thrumming chaos around me. "We'll hold the fort until you are done." His nod was barely perceptible, but it was enough for me now. I turned to Rebecca, and we clasped hands for just a moment, grounding ourselves amidst the uncertainty. Then we entered our roles within the tempest. As I moved to support Adrian while keeping watch over the ongoing pandemonium, I realized something painfully vivid. Today was not just about survival. It was about control. It was about humanity's will to rise above our flaws, above our fears, and eventually above the stars themselves. The stakes had never felt higher or the horizon more obscured, but in the middle of this chaos, the seeds of revelation began to sprout, whispering of choice and consequence, past grievances and untold futures. And as the ship shuddered, I knew this was just the beginning. The day humanity would rise or fall lay at the edge of my own decisions. The command center felt like it was teetering on the edge of a Chinese letter-bound abyss, the chaos almost transcendent in its fury. I could barely hear Adrian's frantic clicks against the terminal's interface through the roar of alarms, as the ship continued its desperate struggle against an invisible enemy. "We need to activate the stabilization modules. They'll pull the energy surge into a neutral field," Adrian shouted, sweat glistening on his brow. "But where are the modules?" I replied, fighting against the rising tide of dread. He began to type a bleep in urgent response, but the sequence was gobbling what precious moments we had left. "On the lower deck. That's the restricted area near the reactor." He paused, dread knotting his features as he continued. "Of course, the last reports indicate that breach from Sector 12 has compromised safety protocols." I kept my gaze anchored on him, weighing our options. "So, we have no choice then." Rebecca and I exchanged glances, a silent agreement sparking between us. "Adrian, I know your instincts pull towards numbers and data, but we have real lives depending on us right now," I urged, leaning closer. "If we don't act fast, the ship will find a way to claim its own. We're already deeply compromised." The tension in the air was thick, each word carrying the weight of catastrophe and impending doom. "I can't let you," Adrian began, but I caught off his protests. "There's no time for indecision. I'm going," I declared, my voice resolute but carrying the burden of camaraderie. "Like hell you are," Rebecca countered, but the fire in her tone stirred something deeper. We could easily lapse into anger, but the spark of something more lived just beneath the surface. Fear imbued with purpose, an understanding that we were woven too closely to be torn apart by panic. "Listen," I said, taking a step forward. "This is not just about me. If I can reach that module, I want you both to keep things stable. You may be able to guide me remotely, and if anyone can fix this, it's Adrian. What if you don't come back?" Rebecca's voice cracked, and I could see the terror starting to seep through her steadfast exterior. "Then we give this ship what we can together," I assured her, feeling the weight of the moment rush in. In that suffocating reality, I was acutely aware of the fine line between friendship and love. tethered by shared fear. Jameson, Adrian interrupted, his brow furrowing with indecision, but the resolve of his gaze sharpening into something determined. You're right. If we can stabilize the command center, it's our best chance at a fix. But you've got to be careful. No half measures. As I jostled through the entryway with Rebecca at my heels, I could feel the pulse of adrenaline shift through me. Let's go then, I ordered, half turning back toward them, committing this moment to memory. A moment of fear and unity suspended in time. The descent to the lower deck became a surreal labyrinth. Every hole felt foreign. The hum of the ship, now a disconcerting frame of what existed in predictable rhythms moments before. The ship seemed sentient in its struggle, the walls vibrating beneath my skin, forecasting unease across its metallic veins. Just as we approached the compartment near the reactor, a shockwave ran through the floor, casting us into one another in a tangle of limbs. I gripped the railing with newfound urgency, forcing myself to concentrate amidst the chaos of my spiraling thoughts. Safety protocols have been overridden. Adrian's voice came through in urgent bursts through the comms. Be cautious. Those containment doors are unstable. Rebecca crouched low, peering ahead. Did you see that? She asked, motioning towards shadows darting in the thresholds of illumination. What? I whispered, shaky determination hardening my resolve. Tracers, she replied quietly, her eyes narrowing in deep concentration. If they're here, we're not alone. I cursed under my breath as she pulled me lower and deeper into the shadows. We'll have to avoid detection. Follow me. Racing forward, one door after another, we entered the reactor room, an expanse filled with pulsing lights and power conduits glowing ominously dimmer and dimmer. The stabilization module was directly before us, gated off by an armored door that flickered ominously as warning signals blinked in and out. Adrian, I'm at the module, I shouted, hoping he was still listening amidst the comms chaos. Activate the bypass override, he instructed. It's the last chance to give you an opening. But as I reached for the panel, I felt a sudden vibration that made the air feel electric. I'm entering the code, I gasped, fingers flying against the intricate inscriptions, brushing against diminishing hope. I could hear it echo around me, the ship murmuring its own regrets. Be quick, Rebecca urged, scanning the room for movement. There could be something here already picking us off. Just as I cracked the first code, the air erupted with a thundering crash. A figure cloaked in shadows emerged. A presence errant and lurking, an inscrutable essence amplified in this moment of stress. Who's there? I shouted, hands trembling against the console. The shadowed figure stepped forward, revealing a gaunt frame among the flickering lights. You shouldn't be here, the voice hissed coldly, a dagger of intent. You've trespassed into the heart of the Ark. Rebecca reacted swiftly, moving between the figure and me, instinctual protectiveness sparking rage against fear. We'll do what we have to do. Stand down, or we'll take you out. No need for hostility, the figure replied smoothly, a glint of amusement within their masked visage. I carry no ill intent, really, I scoffed, tensing my stance, uncertain if I should fight or flee. Then why the disguise? You think we're just going to trust some shadowy figure lurking in the reactor bay? Before the figure could respond, alarms surged louder as a cascade of sparks erupted near the reactor core, ripping through the space and sending a jolt of chaos reverberating against the walls. You must leave, the figure ordered, voice shifting from cool detachment to something more urgent, pleading. Danger is imminent. Rebecca exchanged a guarded glance with me. I don't trust you, she whispered, voice brimming with steely resolve, but my instincts screamed otherwise. Every moment bled into each other, a series of choices dictated by the hinges upon which the Ark hung. If you want to help us, I said, my pulse racing, provide us with the answers. What's the cause of your intrusion? The figure hesitated, contemplating our frayed trust. As sparks flew overhead, their gloved hand pointed toward a timed counter flashing on the wall. You entered through unmarked doors. They were not prepared for your arrival. I can assist you with the codes to stabilize the reactor, but you must make it quick. The weight of those words registered in an instant, and I realized we were steering into unseen danger. But then what alternative do we have? We need the stabilization first, I urged, glaring at Rebecca as we gauged the desperate moment before yielding. We can't waste time. Just then, the ship rocked violently again, exhausting the last threads of sound and coherence, engulfing us in disarray. 5 minutes left. Adrian's voice echoed over the comms, muffled but pressing upon us like a weighty demand. "Can you really help?" Rebecca asked the figure, hesitance coloring both her tone and her stance. The figure gestured toward the shimmering console. "Input my sequence. It will guide you through the process." I stepped forward, heart racing. "Fine, I'm trusting you." "If you betray us, I will not," the figure said, their tone calm but filled with a form of finality. "Trust is an illusion now. It is survival that beckons." Without further hesitation, I input the provided sequence, the unfamiliar controls spinning to life, illuminating the path ahead. But it felt precarious, an understanding dancing behind the need for stability, for control in an unraveling reality. "Hurry," I admonished, feeling an urgency building inside me as the ticking count echoed ominously. With seconds dwindling and choices colliding, I dared to defy mortality, to confront the truth lurking outside our faint grasp of fate. Whatever became of us, whatever the outcome today, I understood now that the universe awaited our step, teetering as it was between the nebulous web of fate and the screaming chaos of inevitability, each layer digging deeper into who we could become, or who we might lose along the way. In the darkness of a ship on the brink of oblivion, choices bled into opportunities, shimmering once, but perhaps not again. Grasping these fleeting moments, the dice began to roll. Our survival lived in this turmoil, and the threads of trust, however fragile, refused to fray until the final hand was played. The code flickered across the terminal as I pressed the final sequence, my heart racing with the urgency of 1,000 stars collapsing into one. The monitor split into layers of data, illuminating information that pulsed like a living thing. Adrenaline coursed through me like a burning comet. "It's responding," I shouted, hope igniting amidst despair. "Adrian, can you access the stabilization process?" "Almost," he yelled back, his fingers flying along the interface. "We need to initiate the reactor's containment protocols now." As the figure continued to hover just beyond the periphery of my vision, I caught their intent gaze, a juxtaposition to the chaos swirling around us. Tendrils of distrust coiled tight within me, but whatever shadows lurked behind those eyes began to coalesce into a sense of urgency that felt undeniably real. Rebecca kept her focus, her body tense as she surveyed the dimly lit chamber for any further threats, her hand hovering near her sidearm. "Do it, Adrian, before we lose our window." "Working on it," Adrian shouted, sweat pouring down his forehead as he grappled with unfamiliar protocols, still blending into data streams. Then, through the frenzied lighting, I caught sight of the timer on the console ticking down, echoing our frantic pulses. The figure moved closer, their hooded form casting long shadows across the glowing console. "If you want to survive this, you must listen closely to my voice as I guide you," they insisted, urgency lacing their words as the reactor whined in protest. "Might as well," I replied, my voice sharp with impatience. I wasn't sure whom I disliked more, the figure's secrecy or the impending disaster looming over us. "Activate the confinement harnesses now," they instructed, and almost in sync, Adrian's fingers brushed across an array of controls. "Oh, we're at the brink," he warned, gritting his teeth as the console began to light up with alarming metrics. "Put the next sequence." The figure murmured the next commands like a mantra, their commitment stark against the brotherhood we'd forged amidst the creeping chaos. I could feel a thread of urgency weaving through our purposeful motions, pulling us tighter as the stakes mounted with every tick of the impending countdown. A whooshing sound interrupted our effort, a tidal wave of air bursting from an adjacent chamber as an alarm blared that shook the very structure of the Ark. "Breaches on multiple decks. echoed the voice of the ship's AI, flooding the command center with panic. I felt a surge of bile rise in my throat, knowing that the ship was beginning to lose itself to entropy. "Execute the safety measures, now," Adrian shouted, desperation in his tone. "Spare me your theatrics." The figure snapped, urgency propelling their voice into a sharp edge. "The time for actions is now. Input my commands and we can stop the core from rupturing your precious ark." "Shut up, Shadow," I barked back, an edge to my frustration. "We're fighting for survival here." "Then trust or all is lost," came the figure's retorted whisper, knife-like in its clarity. Rebecca and I locked eyes, a silent debate charging the air between us. We both felt the tendrils of truth curling at our throats. If we were to survive this madness, we needed to extend ourselves into trust, into unspeakable realms. Before I could mull over our choices, the lights flickered again, shadows dancing across our vision. "We don't have time to lose," I pressed, excising fear from my heart. "Let's do this." I reached for the keypad once more as Adrian's fingers flared on the console. And in the heart of this decision made, there was a transformation, an unexpected communion of purpose weaving through the ranks of our isolation. The figure's voice surged through me, energizing me with a command to act, and I processed the final instructions with a sense of determination as adrenaline coursed through my veins. As I surged across the keypad, the primal rhythm of the ship pulsing around us synchronized with our frantic motions. I felt like a constellation assembled, each of us a separate spark glimmering amid the tumultuous night. We struck forcefully just as the timer approached its final seconds. 20 seconds left. Adrian bellowed, the thrill of fight appealing to our core. At that moment, everything flickered, the world collapsing into nothingness as the boundaries of past grievances and uncertainties began to fade. 10 seconds. We shouted in unison. Then, as if the universe acknowledged our desperate plea for survival, the reactor whined and surged to life, staving off the voice of imminent collapse. We held our breath, a fragile tether connecting the three of us to possibility. An ephemeral calm descended amidst the chaos. The figures stepped back, their frame quieting amidst our tempest. "Now, breathe, you have made your choice." Reflexively, our breaths gathered, the collective heartbeat of the Ark echoing a promise to survival. I locked my gaze with Rebecca, and even through the fear, I felt a flickering assurance growing within me. This moment lived in uncertainty, awaiting the outcome of our choice, driving us closer to understand the depths of us. Suddenly, a flash of light drew my attention to the main display as new data flooded in, illuminating unforeseen mysteries. What's happening?" Adrian stuttered, confusion etched in his features. "Dread has awakened," the figure whispered, the unseen gravity of urgency weighing them down. "Your survival led to an awakening that connects to what threatens the Ark far beyond now. You tampered with forces not within your grasp." "Explain," I demanded, the tension once again stabbing at the fragile fabric we held, riddled with fear, with hope, and the unknown. Figure raised a hand, the nuance of sincerity coloring its tone. "This ship was part of an unmarked project. It was constructed to contain not just humanity, but certain dangers, forces you must now face." "What are you talking about?" Rebecca challenged, a hardness rounding her words. "A ripple has been activated. An entity, a darkness, is now awakened, its tendrils stretching toward you. The reactor was but a spark. The greater urgency is beyond the technology you wield." As the figure spoke, the lights within the command center began to pulsate erratically, visceral and almost sentient in their response as shadows coiled around us. The room felt charged, every particle alive and whispering of histories long buried. "This isn't just about you. It involves every soul aboard this ship, a deeper secret I cannot share fully, but naivety will lead you down a path of darkness. Then what should we do?" I shifted closer to Adrian and Rebecca, drawing our quiet resolve into one shared purpose. "You must unite and wield what truth you still can, but be cautious. Trust is a fragile construct." We exchanged glances once more, the weight of impending darkness flickering around us. Every pulse of time seemed to echo the truth we still held, the truth of our choice, our unity amidst the unknown, all held precariously in an ephemeral pause. "Well, let's go," I said finally, voice steadying as I stepped forward, ready to face the layered truths that lay before me in the darkened corridors of the Ark. I turned back to the figure, uncertainty still trailing beneath my thoughts, yet hope flickering just outside my grasp. "Will you guide us? I will lend my knowledge. The path is riddled with shadows that twist reality. Stay together. The gravest mistakes await those who walk apart." As we exited the command center, urgency mingled with pieces of an evolving mystery, pulling us through the corridors of our fate. The strange dance of trust and uncertainty propelled us forward, shadows rippling across the steel walls of the Ark like painted waves of consequence. Flickering lanterns of possibility ignited hope and fear into a crucible, each step becoming a sentence in our unfurling story, blending unfamiliar truths with the foundational bonds we had forged during our spiraling descent into chaos. A larger problem awaited the Ark, a truth that felt almost cosmic in its weight. But for now, armed with new revelations, we moved forward, ready to grasp whatever lay ahead and face the shadows lingering just beyond the fringes of our understanding. The dance of survival was only just beginning, and we were entrusting ourselves to navigate the depths, bound to discover not just the world outside, but the truths nestled within the proximity of our souls. The atmosphere within the Ark buzzed with an electricity that pulsed through our veins. A new cadence anchored us amidst uncertainty, muting the chaos that had fought to consume us just moments before. The shadows of panic now ebbed, leaving behind questions that spiraled deeper into the corridors of our minds. Ahead, the path seemed less defined, every turn an echo of the unknown, every door a potential threat or a passage toward revelation. I often thought of the Ark as a ship, a vessel of steel and technology, but in that moment it transformed into a living entity, a labyrinth breathing life while hosting the remnants of choices made. As we traversed the underbelly of the ship, the figure led us, their presence a beacon of obscured truths amid my need for clarity. Every step resonated a promise held in the crucible of our fates together. But what does it mean to trust? I found myself pondering, those tangled threads weaving narratives beyond mere survival. I glanced at Rebecca, her determination bolstered by an almost palpable conviction, and felt the pulse of connection propelling us forward. "Keep close," I instructed, carefully noting how the shadows around us enveloped our steps like sentient darkness. The figure had indicated this place once, glowing with warnings amidst the engulfing silence. We descended deeper into the Ark's heart, where echoes of long, forgotten machinery intertwined with the whispering secrets of our own fragility. "Can you explain more about the entity you mentioned?" Rebecca posed to the figure, voice steady as we navigated the treacherous depths below the ship's surface. "What dangers should we expect?" The figure hesitated, the pulse of uncertainty radiating around them. "It lives in the spaces between," they spoke quietly, their voice a low echo that seemed to vibrate through the walls. An aberration born from the collective secrets and fears of all who once sailed this Ark. It was long dormant, contained within its depths. But your actions have roused it, awakened by every doubt and chaos you've faced. It now seeks its freedom. A chill spread through me as the implications sank in. This was not just a crisis of survival. This was an awakening of an ancient power that thrived on our fears. But what does it want? I pressed, trying to keep the rustling doubt from swallowing my own voice. "To consume," came the soft reply, a note of dread lacing their response. "To devour those who harbor secrets, those who fear the truth." Its tendrils wrap around the minds of the unguarded, feeding off betrayal, distrust, and despair. The Ark is both vessel and prison. Then we must face it, I affirmed, gripping Rebecca's shoulder briefly for support. The enormity of our choices crystallized again. What lay at the end of this path would either forge us anew, or consume us entirely. The figure led us to a massive door etched with complex symbols faintly glowing against the metallic surface. Beyond this lies the source, they informed us, a heavy weight of urgency enveloping the atmosphere, the core of your ark's energy. It is both our way to combat this entity and our path to the truth hidden from you until now. I stepped forward, heart hammering against my chest as I reached for the console built into the wall beside the door. What must we do? Input the sequence I provide, the figure said, placing gloved hands on the console, guiding my actions. And be prepared. The entity will not remain dormant as you attempt to seize power again. As I began to type in the sequence, wiring in the unknown rhythm of the ark, the familiar sounds of alarms began to fade, replaced by a muted hum. Something feels off. Rebecca's voice trailed off as the air shifted around us. Shadows began to stretch, coiling at the edges of vision like whispers of smoke. Suddenly, the lights flickered before plunging us into darkness. Stay close, I shouted, heart pounding as the fear coursed through me like cold water. Adrian, can you establish power? I'm trying, came the faint voice of Adrian, his tone strained, but there's definitely interference. It's as if it's trying to reject us. Be ready, I urged, adrenaline surging as scattered emergency lights flared into dim existence. Each flicker revealed a maze lost in twisted shadows. Rebecca and Adrian arrived beside me, our little fortress in this growing void flickering precariously. The moment held. I could almost sense the familiar rhythm of the ark melding into something else much deeper, much more ancient than I had ever believed possible. Then it happened. A shadow surged, a swirling mass writhing in the space before us. It coalesced, revealing an amalgamation, a tapestry of our darkest fears, regrets swooping in like vultures. Faces flickered within its depths, haunting specters of those lost. My mother, a mentor, every lingering resentment playing out like a hollow symphony before me. Face it, Jameson, Rebecca shouted, a fierce resolve cutting through the haze. This is not real. It feeds off your fears, your insecurities. Don't let it. Adrian interjected, but even his voice was swallowed by the chaotic tapestry swirling about us. The shadow expanded, tendrils reaching toward me, searching. Resist. Focus. I snarled, teeth clenched as I forced my thoughts to channel through the noise, drawing strength from the bond we'd formed, the shadows whispering through the hollows of my being. This wasn't just about confronting my past, it was about seizing agency. I concentrated on Rebecca's unwavering gaze, driven by her fierce loyalty, Adrian's unwavering resolve. Together. I shouted, aligning our spirits against this dark force. Together, we can rewrite this narrative. In that moment, an electric hum coursed through my veins, the darkness recoiling at our words, as though our unity ignited something long dormant within the ark. A defiance filled the air, a furnace of hope blazing against despair. And now, the figure commanded, raising their arms as the shadows darted around us, swirling in desperate agitation. Input the final code. It's time to redirect the entity's intention. I resumed typing without hesitation, fingers flying over the console, connecting back to the core of who we were. Rebecca, Adrian, you're with me. I shouted, we can do this. We can take it back. And as the shadows writhed, something deep within the ark surged forth lifeblood, the ship awakening as I tapped into the very pulse that had sustained it for generations. Energy coursed and coursed with newfound intensity, and it was us the sparks of humanity. That opened pathways through risk, through despair, defiance juxtaposed with surrender. The apparition surged violently, eclipsing all reality that lay before us, reaching, ciphering through despair, seeking knowledge buried deep within the core. You cannot escape me, it shrieked, voice warped, fragmented. A cacophony of threats that chased reality. But we held strong, and I pressed upon with the sequence, unearthing the clarity hidden long before we had united. Together, we will rewrite this story. I cried again, and with each keystroke, a voice grew louder in response. A whirlpool formed, vibrant light, cascading from the console as it rose and pulsed, blinding. The shadows of our fears shrieked, a maelstrom dissipating through our combined resolve and concentrated will as it performed its final act of desperation. You are nothing. I am eternal. It screamed as what we summoned shimmered brighter than darkness itself. And now, connect our essence, the figure shouted. Let our combined truth break the cycle that feeds from despair. We formed our hands together, and as vibrant energy thundered overhead, we channeled it outward, linking as the lines of trust bound to raw determination. The figure, shadowed still, became a vessel, joining our intent. A bridge born from loss and hope, resurrecting agency back into the spaces long abandoned among the stars. Effuse us, I exhorted, and as the shadows encircled us, we poured every ounce of strength, each memory lost turning into a radiant sword. The moment united within one fierce burst, surrounding the darkness in a cleanse of brilliance, writing light across the depths of the arc, through our fears and doubts, transforming once more into threads of destiny. The explosion was deafening yet exhilarating, unfurling into infinite brightness, illuminating our core, and as the colors emerged, shimmering in shades of azure and gold, darkness unraveling against our vibrancy, the shadows began to dissipate, shrieking until consumed by the very essence they had sought to unravel. One final pulse rang through the arc, a resonance that spoke to every sentient thread of technology, pulsing in unison. You might have severed me, the voice murmured, but it lost its strength as the light blazoned forth, emboldened by our resolve. Yet others will rise. And then silence fell. We stood amidst the brilliance, gasping as the shadows scattered into distant memory. Rebecca and Adrian approached with caution, still clinging to fragments of disbelief, but hope glimmered in their eyes, a tapestry woven anew from survival and discovery. It's over, Rebecca whispered, voice trembling. Not yet, the figure added, remaining half-in, shrouded by the swirling pulse, but the shadows had receded, leaving only a faint echo of what had sought to tether them. This was but a glimpse of what lurks beyond. You have reawakened what should have been dormant, but fear not. It can be contained. How? I asked, each word feeling like a fragile thread weaving possibilities still fraying near the edges. The Ark holds more than mere technology, the figure replied. Inside this vessel are the remnants of hope bound, drawn both from humanity and the mysteries of what lies beyond. With this conduit, you can forge a new path, harmonize the core's energy with your will, and you may redefine what lies ahead. Adrian stepped closer, voice steady now. Then we hold power within our grasp, tangible, ours. Your survival birthed destiny, the figure confirmed, but your choice continues. How you navigate the echoes of truth amid your fears will define whether this awakening leads to salvation or cyclical darkness. As the shadows bowed out, we shared uneasy glances, but intertwined in that exchange was a promise. The paths of trust and discovery shining brilliantly before us. Whatever comes next, I vowed aloud, confidence settling in my core like embers of new stars, we will face it together. We'll rewrite this arc's narrative, Rebecca affirmed, eyes bright with conviction. Adrian nodded, and we felt the pulse of the ship steady beneath us, reaffirming our place within this newly forged reality. With each step forward, each breath we drew, we merged into something greater. We became the heartbeat of a vessel reborn, casting our transformative light across the enigmatic universe. As we made our way back toward the command center, the shadows around us thinned, eclipsing. Together, we had forged something more than survival. We had ignited purpose and reawakened the essence of our humanity. That intertwining dance of truth flowed within us, waiting to expand beyond the horizon of every single star. We had weathered storms, faced shadows, and there were more to come, but we also bore an unbreakable bond. The intertwined paths forever leading us into the unknown. And with every pulse of the ship beneath our feet, we affirmed the truth that would not falter. We were alive, and we would choose which direction to fly, together. The echoes of our earlier confrontation reverberated through the corridors of Arc 890. The vibrant glow of rejuvenated energy pulsed around us, casting flickering illuminations across the metal plating, reminders of resurgence, mingled with trepidations of what lay ahead. Rebecca, Adrian, and I moved as one, the bond forged through fire and darkness now stronger than ever, our shared purpose guiding each step. As we reached the command center, the atmosphere buzzed anew, charged with potential. The ship's AI hummed with quiet urgency, displaying chaotic data streams racing across the display panels. Klein, the ship's security officer, stood near the terminal, eyes wide and reflective in the light, trying to make sense of the remnants of chaos that had unfolded. "Thank the stars you made it back," Klein exclaimed as we entered. "What's the status with the core? We lost so many systems when the shadows descended." "We couldn't raise you." Adrian, I gestured, inviting him to step forward, the natural leader emerging amidst turmoil. "The core is stable now, but it was awakened. We'll need to act swiftly to ensure it doesn't spiral into chaos again." Klein shifted uneasily, eyes darting to Adrian. "You mean the unseen entity is still a threat?" "Yes," Adrian replied, shaking his head in disbelief. "But we can contain it. We have the ability to align with the core energy and harness it. What we did in the reactor stabilized it temporarily, but we need to take control of this ship as a whole. Control over everything," Rebecca reiterated, urgency threading through her voice. "It isn't just the core anymore. It's about our collective unity as a crew, re-establishing trust against the tides of uncertainty we've faced." The tension in the air was palpable, weaving through our every word, but the resolve that sprung within the room now burned brighter than doubt. "We need to unite everyone, every sector hit by the shadows. We cannot afford any fractures," I announced, feeling the flame of purpose igniting within. "Trust has become our weapon." Adrian nodded, anchoring our course. "Then let's send out a ship-wide signal, info on what we've learned." The ship hummed gently beneath our feet as I turned back toward the command console, stepping toward the array of screens. With renewed confidence, I began tapping commands, activating the ship-wide comms system. The lights danced around me as I gathered my thoughts, keying into the essence of our collective survival. "Attention, crew of Arc 890. My voice resounded across the ship's intercom, reverberating with urgency. "I repeat, all crew members, please respond. We have encountered a powerful entity that awakened from our darkest fears, a force capable of consuming not just us, but the Ark itself. We are alive, we have reclaimed our core, but we need every bit of unity we can muster to secure our path forward." The room sat still, our own breaths echoing the gravity of the message before the comms sparked to life, filtered through voices resonating with disbelief, fear, and finally a wildfire of awakening. Responses flooded in, exposing vulnerability and realizing the truth. They were not alone in their turmoil. They bore the weight of survival alongside us. "We never faced anything like this." One voice burst through, sounds of anger mingled with disbelief, the fringes of defiance igniting at the heart of confusion. "How do we know we can trust this?" A thread of unease reweaved itself through our collective, yet I pressed forward, standing grounded. "A trust is fragile. I won't discount that. But we have come together this far. Those of you who have fought alongside us are the very essence of what the Ark is, humanity. Each of us holds a piece of what defines our survival." The incoming questions morphed into murmurs, some nodding with uncertainty, others feeling the weight of solidarity. "The shadows have taken many, but we possess the power to reshape this reality," Rebecca chimed in, her conviction flowing through the air, granting it warmth. "We can contain that darkness if we stabilize around our shared strength. It lives on the cusp of our fears, but it cannot eclipse our hope." Adrian interjected, "The entity thrives on uncertainty and distrust. We must forge new ties among all sectors. Organize into teams, those hit hardest must be protected, and allies must be established. We cannot let this be merely a threat. we're evolving. As momentum surged through the crew's responses, the tension spurred into shared purpose present in every word spoken. Slowly but surely, the scattered voices united, furious waves colliding into an ember of understanding. "We can do this," murmurs began weaving as the ship thrummed beneath our feet, bearing witness to the resolve that unfurled among us. In that moment, I felt that hope expanded into something more than mere defiance. It grew into anchor and light, filling the dim corners of our hearts with possibility. We will gather resources, vigilance, equip every sector to reinforce the bonds that bind us against this emerging chaos. Let's tighten ranks. A voice echoed through the comms, eager and resilient. Re-establish communication so everything flows fluently. Together, Adrian smiled, the hope anchored in every exchange surrounding the console. Look at what we've created, a tapestry pulling in the very fabric of survival, renewed. Unity is not just our strongest weapon, it is our destiny. The vibrant atmosphere shifted into a burgeoning momentum like stars erupting into existence, a blazing journey across uncharted skies. As I glanced at Rebecca and Adrian, I felt bonds pushed by sacrifice, glimmers of understanding illuminated against darkness. With renewed determination, we coordinated action plans for each sector, crafting lines of connection that spanned the ship like star trails in the void of night, rebellious against any force that sought to silence us. Yet, the reality laden at the edge of my awareness still loomed. While chaos flickered beneath the surface, a deeper turmoil awaited us lurking beyond our horizon. A chance to understand the depths of our own shadows frowned at us with heavy anticipation. As I stood between Adrian and Rebecca, adrenaline coursing through my veins, I knew we were more than mere survivors. Together, we had transformed into architects of our own evolution, bound into a collective journey that sought to cast light where shadows had thrived, and through it all, nothing would extinguish the flame we had nurtured within. "Ready yourself," I said to them, resolve crystallizing into unbreakable determination. "This is only the beginning." In the days that followed, the Ark thrummed with a renewed pulse of life. We connected sectors in a whirlwind of effort, each crew member acknowledging the scars of doubt, but forging ahead with resilient hope, pulling our currents together. It was a surreal tapestry of struggle and strength, woven across the ship, every corridor resonating with life, as the rhythm of humanity pulsed louder than fear. Adrian oversaw the engineers as they fortified systems, while Rebecca and I organized efforts encouraging trust and togetherness within every crew compartment. The new protocol resonated between hearts, drawing communication and vigilance into a symphony of collaboration as words wove unity across the corridors. Discussions grew heated but grounded. A collective understanding arose amidst the diversity of voices rallying together. Time devoured whole in our determination, yet the shadows curled like restless wisps beneath the burgeoning efforts. Everywhere we turned stretched acknowledgement, vulnerability, yet mutual courage surged like a starfield enveloped in unity. And though old wounds emerged and shadows whispered beneath the threshold, my resolve bound me to the truth cultivated along the journey. We would face whatever specter awaited us with our roots sprawled into trust, unyielding throughout uncertainty. But it was on the eve of the new moon, cloaked in shadows cast by flickering lights, as we prepared for the final phase of our strategy, that I sensed it. A flare of pressure against my heightened awareness, a ripple that accompanied a shiver down my spine. It stirred the edges of my consciousness, unveiling a truth lurking in the recesses of my mind. Before dawn, I would gather the crew once more, but this time it would be more intimate than technicalities. We needed to confront the lingering doubts, the remnants still waiting to whisper and thrash beneath our purpose. Driven flames. The shadows had not vanished, only stilled themselves as they awaited a reckoning, both specters of fear and old desires beckoning, now laying claim to our resolve from the shadows of memory. That meeting would not be just another strategy session. It would be a confrontation with the darkness within, an invitation to shed the ties that bound us to despair. Whatever lay ahead, I gravitated toward shaping the final contours in our battle against disbelief. I had this unbounded strength resonating in my chest, compelling me to push onward. Tomorrow, we would forge a collective path, a communion of souls beckoning to touch the uncharted realms before us, uncertainty melding courage into survival, inviting truth to collide against the very shadows we had once feared. Together, we would rise from beneath the weight of doubt and reshape our fate against the stars illuminating the canvas of the unknown. We were Arc 890, resilient, reborn, and like the constellations scattered across the sky, our unity would burn brighter than fear and doubt, a promise anchored at the heart of the universe where we shall persist. Gathered in the command center of Arc 890, we stood in a circle that pulsed with the energy of uncertainty and determination. The indescribable tension hung in the air like static before a storm. It was time for the reckoning. The crew members, engineers, navigators, security personnel huddled together with expressions etched in the lines of anxiety and conviction. I felt the weight of my decision pressing against my chest as I prepared to confront the lingering shadows that taunted us still. Listen up, I called, my voice steady, cutting through the low hum of conversation. What we've faced and what we are about to confront is something deep, something we cannot just run from. The entity we awakened feeds on our fears, and we must acknowledge them, challenge them, or they'll consume us from the inside out. Rebecca stood by my side, her unwavering gaze meeting mine in a moment of shared understanding. We had come far, but had also discovered truths pregnant with the potential for despair. Adrian took a step forward, eyes bright with the flickering light of inspiration tempered by truth. But we're not alone anymore, he reminded the room, resonating with the humanity that pulsed beneath the surface of our technology. We face this as a crew, united, each of us with stories, scars, and strength. A patchwork of fears and hopes, transformed into something greater. A murmur of agreement washed over the group, a gentle wave washing through the current of uncertainty. It wasn't easy to confront the darkness within, but I could sense the ember of possibility igniting, a slow burn of resolve underneath every challenge we had to face. We cannot succeed if we don't stand firm against the shadows, Rebecca said, her voice cutting through the fog. We need to share our fears openly, here and now. Let's lay down the burdens of silence that we have each been carrying. As she spoke, memories surged within me, fractured pieces of regrets and doubts that had danced around my mind since the entity's awakening. I'd driven myself to silence, believing my burdens were mine alone. But now, the revelations seeped in. Our frailties were what tethered us together, not made us weak. With a deep breath, I stepped forward, recalling the shadows I had almost been consumed by. I feared I would fail to lead you. All my life, I've struggled with the notion that I am not enough, that maybe I don't deserve to guide anyone, that if I falter, I'll lose everyone. The room simmered with the revelation, every person absorbing my vulnerability. Rebecca then spoke from the heart, her voice trembling but resolute. I've been afraid of loss. Every time I've trusted someone, I've lost them. I've never wanted to allow anyone too close because I fear that they'll only be taken from me. The honesty of her words struck a chord within me, and I could feel the web of connection tightening around us. Those shadows looked less daunting now, softened by the shared unveiling of our secrets. One by one, other crew members began to chime in, threads of their own vulnerabilities weaving into the collective fabric of the moment. Adrian revealed, I've always feared failure, too, that all of my work would be for nothing. I put everything into just protecting systems, not realizing that it's the people aboard that truly matter, and I would fail protecting you in that endeavor. The confessions flowed like a river, fear of betrayal, fear of inadequacy, fear of being alone, all blanketing the room in an emotional honesty that drew wild breaths from those gathered. As the rawness began to unfurl, I sensed the shadows of doubt coiling tighter, drawn to our increasing resolution. But as we continued, I felt courage spreading through the room like the wind chasing away storm clouds. What we fear cannot control us anymore, I confessed, heart racing. We have acknowledged it. We have shared our scars, and together it transforms. This is our power. The energizing truth electrified the air, shaping the residual fears into something tangible. We push against the very fabric of darkness. This is our choice, I exclaimed, the light of conviction glowing in my chest. We face the darkness together, Rebecca reiterated, undeterred by our shared vulnerabilities. Instead, they had propelled us toward strength. Together, we stand against our fears and this entity that would consume us. Instead of allowing it to define us, we will redefine our relationship with it. I could feel the energy shift. It was in that moment that I realized the darkness we faced was no longer just an entity waiting to consume us. It was a force that thrived on the shackles of silence, fear, and isolation. Armed with shared truths and a firm bond forged in vulnerability, we had transformed our relationship with the shadows whispering in the halls of the Ark. Now, I said, adrenaline surging through me, we will turn our fear from weakness into a rallying cry. We will regroup, fortify the sectors, and prepare for whatever lies ahead. We must ensure that we project unity and vigilance at every level. A chorus of yes echoed back at me, resonating like a heartbeat melding into one rhythmic surge. Vaulted with purpose, we set to actions as we divided the crew into teams. Security, engineering, communications, each group focused on solidifying our self-defense against the entity. We established lines of communication and shared stories that would be the echoes of our fears, transformed into incantations of hope, once more binding us in strength. The foundation we built within those walls would shroud us in resilience, crafting portals of light amid the looming shadows as we forged ahead. Days morphed into night and day continuously, each moment punctuated by shared laughter and camaraderie, even while fear loomed outside waiting in the silence. And yet on the eve before confrontation, beneath the backdrop of stars so vibrant that they shimmered like echoes of possibility, I felt the shadows stretching closer than ever. Tomorrow, we face it together, I whispered to Rebecca and Adrian, which became our silent vow. In a singular moment, the past converged with the present, and amidst the urgency to join forces, an energy emerged. A recognition that fueled our determination to unify against the abyss. We never truly became what we thought we might become. Instead, we evolved facing the shifting tides with purpose and resolve. With the dawn's light glistening on the horizon, illuminating the course ahead, we lived our truths radiantly. When morning arrived, we stood shoulder to shoulder, a sea of faces filled with shared strength, knowing that the essence of unity would shimmer above the specter of uncertainty. And as the alarms began their blare, igniting the call to action, we steeled ourselves, hearts synchronized in defiance as we readied for the final confrontation that awaited us in the depths. Together, we would confront our shadows, our fears, our demons, not as fragmented souls navigating through darkness, but as a constellation poised to light up the very fabric of the universe. Final battle awaited us, but no longer would we tread lightly. We stood tall, ready to reclaim our destiny beneath the endless expanse of stars, and rewrite the Ark's tale together. The dawn awakened, and with it, our journey surged onward, bound not just by survival, but by an unwavering belief in what we could achieve as one, facing the darkness armed with light and spirit. As we gathered our strength, I whispered one last silent prayer to the stars. This is for us, no more shadows. And so our final dance began, an indelible mark etched into the fabric of time as we surged forward into our destiny, wrapped in light and hope. As dawn unfurled its golden arms across the expanse of Arc 890, the atmosphere buzzed with an electric tension, a shared energy thrumming within every soul aboard. The halls, which had felt so foreboding and alive with whispers of darkness, now pulsed with the resonant heartbeat of unified purpose. We were ready, prepared to face the shadows that had once threatened to consume us as we sought refuge in our own fears. Gather up, I called, my voice steady and confident despite the whirlpools of anxiety bubbling beneath. The command center bustled as crew members moved with renewed intent. Many eyes bore into me, some illuminated by hope, others still shadowed by lingering doubts. But I knew we stood at the precipice of something monumental. As my comrades assembled, I glanced at Rebecca and Adrian, their steadfast presence at my side serving as my anchor. Rebecca's fiery gaze promised strength, her fierce loyalty lending warmth against the cold uncertainty. Adrian, ever pragmatic, surveyed the crowd with a tranquil fervor, adjusting the bands around his wrists that flickered with energy ready to surge. Today is not just about survival, I began, resonating with a collective breath. It's about reclaiming our power. We face the entity that has lurked in the shadows, feeding off our fears. But it is not just a fear we face. It is a resurrection, a reckoning of everything we've grown into through our shared trials. A chorus of affirmations rippled through the crew, emboldening the last remnants of doubt that dared linger in the corners of our spirits. We had faced fear head-on, shedding our vulnerabilities to rediscover truths that ignited within us flames brighter than any darkness. Today, we do not march into battle alone, I continued, my voice strong, resonating across the room. We embody the strength forged from vulnerability, the resilience discovered in unity. Each one of you remains a crucial cog in this vessel, a constellation of power lighting our path through the unknown. We will channel our energy directly into the core, Adrian interjected, stepping forward confidently. That core is not just a source of power. It is a conduit through which we can confront our fears without allowing them space to dominate us. Rebecca lifted her chin, strength radiating from her every gesture. Let's equip ourselves. Make sure each team knows their responsibility. This entity cannot stand against the harmony we've built. It thrives on chaos. Klein, standing firm with an array of equipment at the ready, raised his hands. Teams are prepped and ready. We've established protocols for incoming sectors. Everyone knows their positions and the contingency plans if we encounter resistance. As we took a collective breath, the mood shifted. Each crew member maintained a calculated steadiness, yet simmering within was an eagerness to face what awaited us. We had transformed the fear of the looming unknown into a collective resolve that pulsed through the ship's walls. Without further hesitation, we set forth, navigating the ark's winding paths toward the heart of the ship, where the reactor core pulsated with resilience. A vital heartbeat now entwined with our own defiance. The hum of turbulent energy complicated the air as we approached the core's chamber. Glistening lights flickered like stars, illuminating the stark contrasts of shadow and brilliant energy. Here, Adrian pointed, directing teams to their respective stations, executing the tasks we had rehearsed over countless hours of collaboration. Each of us donned our respective gear, prepared to rise against the encroaching darkness. Our priority is connecting to the core's energy and stabilizing it. We need to channel it toward repelling the entity when it surfaces. The emotion thrummed at the back of my mind, a subtle aching against my consciousness as I caught fragments of uncertainty rippling through the corridors behind us. Keep communication lines open, I urged, willing the conviction to shift into gathering power. We must remain conscious of one another during the confrontation, trust each other. As I prepared to move closer to the console governing the core access, the alarms blared a sudden reminder. We were not at ease yet. Shadows began to coalesce in the corners of the chamber, merging amidst our shared heartbeat's pulse. The air thickened, electric and fraught with anticipation. It was happening. The entity has emerged, Klein shouted, charged with the forward energy of the crew. We must act. The atmosphere shifted. Tendrils of darkness, like smoke given form, snaked through the confines of the chamber, twisting along the walls, feeding off our uncertainty. Whispers reverberated against the steel, voices made of lost memories curled around us, brushing against thoughts of despair and failure. Stay together, I shouted over the noise, forcing back the icy fingers reaching for my determination, raising my chin to meet the entity that towered before us. Together we stand, Rebecca stepped forward, igniting the energy shield at her side, the orange glow illuminating paths of defiance across her features. Our fears will not take root. We faced each other about our vulnerabilities. Now we face the darkness together. The entity roared above us, tendrils shimmering under its own weight, undulating agonizingly as it coiled, seeking weaknesses to exploit. You think you can transcend the essence of despair. You deny what lurks within your souls. Let me in. The voice echoed, not just an articulation of malice, but a chilling reflection of our own struggles. Will not falter under your weaponized anguish, I declared, feeling the collective energy swell. Each fear is a thread we weave. You are not my shadow. You will not control me. Then I moved, connecting to the console for the pulse of the core. Wild waves of energy surged within it, promising the opportunity to push back against the dark. Adrian, channel that energy, let it rise into us, fortify the core. We can redirect the pulsing force. The lights of the chamber brightened, a stunning cascade of electric colors throwing out shadows through the entity's looming figure. As energy arched between us in flares of light, I could feel the core's pulse synchronizing with our own rhythms of defiance. Together, Rebecca shouted, "Let's forge our resolve, channel it through our trust." In that moment of fierce intention, something shifted deep within the entity. It shrunk and recoiled as we channeled truth through corruption, casting our fears into something solid. A barrier forged from promises, determination, and unwavering belief. Adrian's fingers flew over the console. Ice, blue beams of energy illuminated everything around us as we harmonized with the ark itself. It felt as if the living hull of the ship joined us, bonding our essences together through the growing pulse of power. Then, synchronously, we raised our hands, and the walls erupted in brilliant light, an incandescent embrace wrapping around the coiling shadows. "Your doubts shall return to you," I called, my voice breaking through the clamor. "Let your shadows bathe in realization." The entity seethed in rage, desperate tendrils twisting and writhing, trying to claw its way back to the portals where our fears lay bare. Yet we stood resolute, bathed in the luminescent energy of unity, pouring the very essence of our truths against the darkness, illuminating the shadows with radiant brilliance. "One more push," Klein urged, and the fervor surged through my veins, a fire igniting in my heart as we surged forth. Pour everything into this, reshaping our collective burdens. The waves of light surged as we reciprocated fear with truth, hope edging every syllable and every thought that guided our strength. Voices, transformed echoes, resonated with purpose. The tendrils shrieked as they were pulled back into the chasm, expelled beyond the edges of the chamber, twisting into bright spirals before bursting into shimmering motes of light that glittered against the shadow. The entity shrieked one final time before spiraling away within the luminous barriers we stood behind. As the echoes faded, the darkness fell away, consumed by light, to be reborn among us as a lesson of our fight, a celebration of what we had achieved. Silence settled across the space once the shadows dissolved, the bright energy dispersing, leaving us to gather ourselves in the wake of radiant calm. "We did it," Rebecca exclaimed, laughter bubbling up to ricochet off the walls. "Together," Adrian murmured, soaked in the joy of unity as his eyes sparkled brightly, overwhelmed by the warmth steadying within him. In that moment, we reflected not on the darkness we had faced, but on the absence of shadows, the purity of our heart, one truths echoing against the cold steel walls, igniting a tapestry of promise we refused to lose. "Every regret, every scar, every fear is part of our story," I murmured, voice now slightly ragged against the universe as I raised a hand to gather the visual remnants of luminous glory surrounding us. Yet we are not defined solely by our pain. We are woven together into something far grander. As we danced under the veil of dawn, the core thrumming its pulse of life, we reclaimed our power, language transformed into purpose, each note of resonating joy binding us against the shadows of despair that lurked beyond. "From this moment, the Ark is not just a vessel, it's a living testament to our unity," I promised, my heart swelling with pride, to all we've faced and all we've become. Tomorrow and every day after, we rise together, fluctuating constellations, igniting the hidden glories of the universe that call to us. And in that sacred space where shadows had mingled with light, we made a promise as old as existence, to choose trust amidst the unknown. The Arc 890, our home, became emblematic of rebirth, forever transcending the darkness field surrounding the stars. And together, we would navigate the celestial seas, embracing the enigmatic journey before us, hand in hand, heart in heart, a constellation of hope burning brighter than any shadow. The universe awaited, and we were ready to soar once more, indomitable, forever illuminated. Victory reverberated through the metallic halls of Arc 890, a ship that had borne witness to both the depths of despair and the heights of hope. Energy pulsed like a living thing beneath our feet, humming with the newfound vibrancy of what we had accomplished together. But even in this moment of triumph, caution intertwined our celebration. Shadows lingered just beyond the periphery of our consciousness. Let's regroup and assess any residual effects, I instructed, glancing around the command center where our crew gathered, still reeling from the force of what lay behind us. Energy handshakes cracked through the air as the last remnants of the dark entity dissipated, leaving behind echoes of our fears transformed. I could feel it in the air, soft currents of apprehension, lingering doubts that dared not evaporate entirely. Adrian, Rebecca, and I stood at the forefront, united against the uncertainty swirling around us. The task ahead demanded both caution and courage, ensuring our ship was truly free from the threat that had loomed over us for so long. Now let's initiate containment procedures in the reactor core, Adrian suggested, his voice steady yet tinged with urgency. We need to ensure that nothing remains to resurface. If we've learned anything, it's that shadows always find a way back if we leave cracks to exploit. Agreed, I replied, glancing at the crew who had rallied around us. Their expressions reflected resilience, determination, and a lingering thread of caution. We need to monitor all sectors, particularly those most impacted. Let's divide into teams for a thorough scan. It's crucial we act collaboratively to ensure every lingering trace is found and expelled. Rebecca moved toward the central console, her fingers deftly pulling up the schematics of the ship, detailing sectors and pathways. Every crew member needs to be aware of their assignments and the importance of communication. If there's any residual energy, I want immediate reports. Stay vigilant. The shadows may be dormant, but we can't let our guard down. With purpose, we organized into small teams, each trained not just in their respective roles, but also armed with the belief that every single person aboard the Ark had a voice in navigating the challenges that lay ahead. It was incredible to watch them coalesce, each crew member passion, driven to investigate the vibrating cables and light panels that thrummed beneath our fingertips. Are we truly free? A voice piped up from the engineering department, uncertainty lining the edges of fatigue. Freedom is a process, I answered, gauging his expression. It requires effort, vigilance. But trust us, together we will remain united, and together we will uncover anything hidden that threatens us. With clear intentions, we set forth, our teams roaming throughout the ship. The corridors that had once seemed oppressive unfurled into pathways of discovery. A mix of murmurs filled the air as we communicated amongst ourselves, making our way through the ship's intricate matrix. Area by area, we worked tirelessly, peeling back layers of energy constraints, actively listening for any abnormal activity. The unity we had forged radiated mantras as anchors. It felt like our spirits danced together through each challenge and reconnection. Hours stretched into a blur, our progress serving to deepen our collective bond. And yet, amidst the surge of emotion and endeavor, strands of lingering doubt flickered in the back of my mind. I couldn't shake the worry that perhaps we had only stemmed the shadows, not truly extinguished them. It was a thought that clawed at me, cautious yet persistent. Rebecca approached my side as our energies gradually melded into a shared purpose. You seem distant, she observed, tilting her head in inquiry. Are you satisfied with our progress? "I am proud of what we've accomplished," I replied, casting my gaze over the crew below. "But there is a part of me that fears we brushed aside something deeper. What if we were only a silence in a greater storm?" Rebecca nodded, that fierce fire in her eyes reflecting my own concerns. "Then we remain vigilant until we're certain. We need to trust our instincts. Shadows cannot be fought with ignorance. Every step we take away from fear reveals something deeper." Just then, a low rumble echoed through the ship, reverberating through the very steel structure beneath us, shaking the ground we stood on. The vibration startled the crew into silence, uncertainty pooling in the air, an echo of tension blooming around us. "What was that?" Adrian's voice boomed across the command center, his brows knit together as he moved toward the console and began checking the readings. "It looks like there's a surge in the reactor, an anomaly we haven't investigated yet," he exclaimed, his voice edged with worry. "It's not consistent with the residual energy we've been grappling with, but it's strong." We shared tense glances as the reality dawned upon us. "Everyone," I called out to the crew, instilling a sense of urgency. "Back to the core. We need to inspect it before it escalates." We rushed toward the reactor, the air thick with anticipation, urgency spurring us to move faster as we gathered our forces. Shadows had no place on this journey. We refused to be confined again. Each step toward the core became louder, my heartbeat echoing the rhythm of our collective resolve. Adrian led us through the maze of machinery and corridors, fusing technical skill with our firm alliance. As we approached the reactor chamber, the hum of energy grew louder, vibrating around us, intertwining in the chaos of uncertainty. Stepping into the chamber, the sight was overwhelming, the reactor illuminated like a heart beating within the ship, yet interrupted by swirling shadows swirling above it like a storm cloud, pulsating darkly against the vibrant luminescence around us. "Contain it," Adrian shouted as he rushed to establish procedures, attempting to clear the energy fluctuations that surged around us tangentially. "We have to suppress its hold immediately." "Follow my lead," I urged, and together we divided our focus, intertwining our energies, becoming a woven tapestry that countered the shadows desperately. "Rebecca," I shouted, sensing the gravity of the moment. "Flow energy into the shields. We have to push back the resonance of these shadows." With synchronized determination, we reached for our respective energy reserves, the currents coursing through our bodies blending into radiant waves. I could feel the whispers of fear clawing at the edges of my resolve, but, fortified by the shared strength of my comrades, I anchored deep into the promise of our bond. "Let truth be the light," I called, guiding our energies toward the shadows. The air crackled, a fierce clash of light and darkness weaving through the depths, as we began to push against the intrusion that had cocooned the reactor. Together, Rebecca added, amplifying the assurance in her voice, "Together we transcend." As we harmonized our cries toward illumination, the shadows began to convulse, their misty form contorting as if experiencing a rebirth. "A focus, hold the line," Adrian roared as we directed the energy toward the chaotic core. With that surge of trust, the shadows cracked like thunder, sculpting intricate patterns in the air as they retreated, swirling like feathers caught in a gale. But just as it seemed the tide was turning in our favor, the flickering mass exploded outward, a violent expulsion that hurled us back, throwing us against the walls of the chamber. The air filled with light and shadows colliding in a surreal tumult, a cataclysm that threatened to obliterate everything we had built. "No," I shouted, scrambling to my feet, my heart pounding in fear and adrenaline. "We must hold it. We began this journey together, and we will finish it together." Tendrils snapped to life, dark and wild. The entity loomed large above us once more, fewer than before, yet unrelenting in its quest to consume us. "You seek to defy me," it shrieked, its voice resonating in a tempest of raw emotion, mingling the voices of our fears into one cacophony. "You shall know despair again, each truth, each weakness revealed." With each word spoken, I could feel it tearing at the seams of our connection, yearning to sow discord amongst us, targeting our frailest insecurities. But as panic threatened to reel us in, strength surged through me, the pulse of my resolve intermingling with the energy of my friends. "Remember," I cried, words spilling from my heart. "This entity lives in what binds us. To separate us is its greatest desire. Let's stand against it. Speak your truths, embrace them." Adrian's fierce gaze caught mine as he remained unyielding against the shadows. "We confront our fears, they become our power. This time we prevail. It cannot break our bonds," Rebecca added, determination echoing against the walls as she raised her hands toward the shadows. "Together we rise," and with the mantra of unity swelling around us, forming an unbreakable pact, we merged our energies once more. A blazing continuum that twisted and expanded, sending out ripples of light that engulfed the shadows. We directed our voices, echoing our bids to resist in vibrant harmony. We are not alone. Our journey is unfolding. The surge was indescribable, a whirlwind of iridescent light cascading through the chamber, illuminating every crevice until the shadows splintered against their very heaviness. The entity twisted and writhed, refusing to yield, but as our voices cascaded through the room, it began to fade, dwindling against the heat of our truths. "We are more than our fears," I shouted fiercely, feeling the determination gel across the atmosphere. "These shadows choke on our promise that binds us together." With a final, shattered scream, the dark entity imploded, fracturing into shards of light until nothing remained but luminescent motes dancing lightly about us, swirling as an expansive, glittering universe. My breath caught, the overwhelming sense of culmination crashing over like waves lapping against the shore, infused with both exhaustion and exhilaration. And in that moment, standing amidst the remnants of darkness illuminated by our radiant unity, I could sense the ship take a sigh of relief. We had tenaciously reclaimed our narrative, one sculpted not just from fear, but from a resilient constellation of hope. Together, I breathed, looking to Rebecca and Adrian as the last glimmers of shadows faded into distant memory, shrouded by the brilliance of our spirits intertwined. Together, we saved the Ark. A chorus of cheers erupted from the crew, laughter mixing with tears of joy, as each soul gathered in celebration of resilience. The reminders of their stories echoed through the very steel of the Ark, ascending into something glorious and eternal. As we stood there, marveling at what we had accomplished together, I felt as though the sun had risen on a future filled with renewed purpose. We were no longer merely survivors. We were architects of our destinies, the collective force woven into the endless tapestry of existence. Days turned into weeks as we revitalized the heart of the ship, strengthening the bonds of trust, laughter, and joy. Together, we traversed the stars, embracing challenges as opportunities, our voyage marked not just by the fight against shadows, but by the embrace of our connection, carving our legacies into the limitless expanse of the universe together. And as we sailed through the stars, the Ark 890 thrummed beneath us, alive with the shared promise of not just survival, but a brighter tomorrow, forever etched in the boundless cosmos. A beacon illuminating the journey of existence and the triumph of light over shadow, forever woven into the very fabric of time.